Hi, hello, it's Ro. So if you're watching this video, you're probably either studying something else and you're thinking about switching into psychology, or you've actually gone out and worked in a different area and thinking about going back into study and doing a career change. I was someone who went straight through without doing a study break. However, now I've gone a couple years out. I've worked with people from early career all the way to people who are retiring. I now have a bit of a position to say about transferring into psych as an older, kind of mature age student. And I keep getting comments on this on pretty much every video, so I wanted to address it today. So if you're ready to launch into all of the pros and cons that I can think of, then keep on watching. So let's start with some of the pros. First one, psychology is a lifelong career. It's something that you won't really age out of, unlike maybe if you go into some sort of athletic thing, trades, even some of the financial, corporate sectors. You'll find that you kind of want to slow down, or your brain isn't kind of keeping up with younger people. Psychology ages really, really well. Often people will stay in their jobs for many, many years. And actually, one of the issues with early career psychologists, it's hard to find jobs because people will stay pretty much all the way up until retirement. Yes, psychology takes quite a bit of time, and we're going to talk about how it can really disrupt your life because it's so full on. But in the grand scheme of a career that can really last all the way up until retirement, maybe that 4 to 6 years can feel more justifiable than a career that you only have maybe 10 years to practice in. The second thing is there is a huge amount of flexibility, and I have never actually worked 5 days a week as a psychologist. Most psychologists actually do 2 separate places of work, whether it be 2 private practices or a private practice and a research. And there's a lot of people who have kids. Actually, so many of my colleagues are parents, and they come in late because they're dropping off kids, or they leave early, and they might even take school holidays off. Some of them work on weekends, and it's very flexible in the sense that, say your child has school camp and for some reason you need to take them, you actually have the flexibility maybe 2 weeks before to just put it into your schedule and that day's off for you. Just in terms of life flexibility, it gives you a great work-life balance because you have a lot of control over the way that you work. The third thing is something that I would have really loved, which was you just have more skills, life skills, personal skills. And I don't mean life experience to dispense to clients, because we'll talk about how that's completely separate. But I mean more just, you might have more emotion regulation skills and just general skills. When I went into masters, I was probably one of 3 or 4 people who went straight in from undergrad. Everyone else was actually from or was actually older. So they either had done a different career, or they had done a couple years of work and then tried to get into clinical masters because it's quite competitive. I actually think that they coped much better. A, because they had some sort of financial backing and they already had worked a couple of years, and so they weren't as stressed out about money. Most of them also had partners and kind of like a set up life. I was still living at home, which was good in some ways. And then there was just this sense of like maturity. Maybe the biggest thing is actually this sense of confidence of like, I kind of know who I am and I'm confident in that. But I did find that the younger ones, we were a bit more tense and just a bit more like, maybe a bit perfectionistic about all of our study. And we were in that very student mindset. Having just, if I thought about my current self going back in and doing masters, I think she probably would have done a lot better. Even if I'd spent the last few years going and working something different, I'd probably just be a bit more settled in myself. I'd have a greater sense of what my self-care routine looks like. I'd be more confident in my abilities, and I just have general, the emotion regulation skills that you develop from day-to-day life. Another one is the fact that clients will actually prefer older clinicians. This was something that I was chatting to my clinic admin with, especially with the kind of older clients. If they're looking on the website and the bios, and even if someone was on the exact same stage, they do generally pick the someone who looks maybe a bit more experienced. Because, I get it. Like, if you're 60 years old, you might not feel as connected to a psych in your mid-20s. So you just carry the feel of having more experience, and that might have nothing to actually do with your study experience, but people might look at the photo and go, oh, that person looks like they're helpful, and they have a wealth of life experience and work experience behind them. So you'll probably find actually you have a better chance of finding work, but then also having clients select you. I think one of the biggest ones is, I think there is a greater sense of, I want to pursue this. And there's a groundedness in people who have made a really active decision to either change careers, or they've studied something and they realize they don't really like it and they want to go into something either because of the fulfillment, or it's more meaningful, or it's something you've always wanted to do but you didn't have the chance to. That experience can be so powerful as a motivator, because then you're going into the career kind of going, I tried the other thing that I wanted to do and I realized that it's not a good fit for me. Or maybe I've changed and now the new version of me feels like psychology would be a better fit. That being quite a good motivator when things get tough, which they definitely do get tough during the study period. It's not necessarily a bad thing to actually have had an experience which made you really realize what you want out of life. Because when I graduated, I knew I wanted to do psychology, but it was always in a bit of a theoretical sense. I didn't actually know what other paths were like. I didn't know what would have been a good fit for me. I got really lucky. My main thing is just that if it's been a dream of yours for a long time, like, go pursue it, right? It's never too old, and thankfully psychology is a field that is set up in a way that allows for longevity. Okay, let's go into cons. So the first one is the fact that it is a long, arduous journey and basically full-time. So if you have dependents, if you have increased financial responsibilities, a mortgage, it's a 2-income household, and then suddenly you drop your income, that is going to lead to a lot more instability, and there's a lot of other factors to consider. I had the privilege of being able to live at home when I was doing my master's and undergrad studies. Even when I was a registrar, up until I actually started making money, I was completely relying on my parents. I wasn't paying rent. Sometimes I'd come home really late and they would have cooked dinner. It is going to be very, very stressful and hard, and it's a long haul. It's emotionally draining, the time requirements, the fact that you are basically unpaid for the first 6 years of your study. If you start from first year, I was doing kind of casual shifts, probably amounting to about 3-4 hours a week. I had some friends who were older, who had established jobs, who they did maybe 1 day a week of research, but even that got a bit dicey towards the end of the term. Say you wanted to work a day job and do psychology at nighttime, it's also a bit of a recipe for burnout. I think one of the things might be that you'll need a financial buffer, or if you've got a partner, or if you've got family that you can rely on, or if you can somehow apply for some sort of scholarship. It is a long, arduous journey where you will not be able to go and work a full-time income while picking up psychology. The second thing is, I know that there's a certain mind frame that you have and a way of thinking when you're studying, and it's very different to when you're working. That whole thing of submission dates, meeting certain guidelines on essay structures, marking criteria, submitting scientific reports. To be completely honest, if someone chucked me back into uni now, I would feel pretty out of my depth for a while, and you've just gotten out of the groove of study. I can also understand that someone mature age or having done something else for a couple of years coming back, it is tricky switching your perspective and becoming a student again. I mean, I'm speaking to some psych students right now and they're using ChatGPT for assignments, or getting structures, and there is a lot of technology involved in being a university student, and it's definitely not a barrier. It's more of a bit of a hurdle to kind of just get some time and get back used to how to use BibMe, which is like a tech or a website that helps you create a bibliography without you having to APA it yourself, or how to use, Google Drives to organize all of your notes. Just that ability to be quite student-minded. I don't use a lot of that stuff in my adult life or my working life anymore. The next thing is, I don't even know, it's not exactly like a con of being older, but it's like an anti-pro. I think some people kind of go and say it's really helpful having more life experience going in, and that's going to get you through the program a lot easier, and you'll bring a lot of your own stuff. And definitely, we are not blank slates. We bring our own worldview into psychology, but at the end of the day, it is a science, and we are delivering evidence-based strategies to clients. We're not providing life advice or anecdotal advice. So having more life experience doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make a better psych student or you're going to pick stuff up easier. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that you're going to be learning is not stuff that we're taught in everyday life, and it is not stuff that you're learning. However, I do have to say you probably have a bit more gravitas if you deliver it to a patient and you've experienced the same thing. But that doesn't necessarily have to come with just age either. And then the last con I want to mention is less about this kind of mature age thing, but just for anyone who is considering switching. Psych is an incredible field. I love it. However, part of the reason why I created this channel is also talking about being an early career psych. It's not always the easiest field, and it is often put on a pedestal and romanticized. I have a video about reasons why you shouldn't study psychology. You know, it is a tough field, so if there is maybe a belief of like, oh, you know, my current field is so rough and I'm sure psychology would make me feel so fulfilled all the time and warm and it's so meaningful. Yes, there's an aspect of that, but there's also all these different aspects where it is tougher than a corporate job, a salaried position, a job where you can just kind of clock in and out emotionally and you can just leave it at the office. Just being aware that every job has its own pros and cons, so doing all the research around if it's feasible for you and if it's actually the career that you want. So yeah, I guess TLDR, all of that is, I don't think it is ever too late if the practicalities of it work out for you. Get informed, really understand what the field is like, do information interviews with existing psychologists. I did this myself, reach out to them on LinkedIn, ask them about what their work is like. And once you have kind of a view of what it actually, the realities of what it is to work as a psychologist and you still want to do it, it is not too late. I don't think it ever is too late. Psychology is such a great field for later in life. Best of luck. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have anything to add, or if you've actually gone and done a switch and you have experience to share it, that would be so valuable. Leave that below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you next Thursday. Bye. Oop.